got an 8-game Tuesday slate for you. How about that? The last two Tuesdays, Thursdays, actually a decent amount of games. Glad to be with you and glad to have you with us. Adam, it was 64 degrees here outside of the Philadelphia area today. Last week at this exact same time, it was -1 degrees. So pretty happy. Pretty happy.
Yeah. Yeah. The weather's a lot nicer here too. It's definitely much better. Hopefully the cold doesn't come back anytime soon.
Like walking the dog today wasn't one of those experiences where I'm like, I do it because I love you,
Right.
but I hate myself right now for it. And you just try and get back as quickly as possible. No, I enjoyed myself today.
Yeah.
And
I walked outside for a couple of minutes today just to be outside, and it was really nice.
you get sunburn? No. All right. Let's get started. I'm just as fair skinned as you are, but the way that you like, yes, I saw the sun today. It's been many months. You probably do all right in Alaska.
Yeah, I guess I'd be okay. I feel like the sun's like stronger there though, like you're further north.
Right, but isn't there like a full month where the sun literally doesn't come up, where it's pitch darkness?
I have no idea. That would be pretty miserable.
I thought so. I don't know. Anyway, Josh. Oh, that's my fault. I clicked on the wrong video. I was trying to make sure that we were good and we were live. My fault. False alarm. All right, let's get into it. Man. I know. I should have trusted you. All right. Let's start it off with Cleveland and Boston. Boston Celtics on the road. Unsurprisingly, heavy favorites here against this pretty putrid Cleveland team. No more Rodney Hood though. So 10-point spread here in favor, of course, of the Boston Celtics. The total sits currently at 210, and I guess we'll start with the Cavs. So, Adam, just looking at these players, right? We've got Clarkson, we got Burks, we got Sexton, we've got Nwaba, you've got Cedi Osman out, and then you've got Larry Nance. No Kevin Love, obviously. No Tristan Thompson. Ante Dzidzic. This is our Cleveland team.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. I haven't seen it confirmed if Stauskas and Baldwin are there. I think that they can play today. But I don't think it makes a big difference. It's just, two bodies that they may or may not have. But overall, just a really unappealing spot for the most part. Larry Nance, I think, is fine. His price tag's pretty inexpensive. We've seen him taking minutes from Ante Dzidzic. All of his minutes last game, even with Cedi out in the second half, were at the center position, which is good for Nance. He's more productive there than when he's playing at the 4. So I don't dislike him, but also not a priority play for me. Same really goes for Alec Burks and for Jordan Clarkson. I think that their minutes are solidified here without Cedi and without Rodney Hood. It's a really difficult matchup, obviously, against Boston. There's some upside at their price tags, but I still just get other guys that I like a little bit more. I think there's enough value on this slate that I don't have to prioritize those guys. But if I were going anywhere from this Cleveland team, it would be Nance, Clarkson, and Burks. And I guess like 4,200 Sexton's okay, but I would rank him behind those 3 guys.
Yeah, this was a conversation that we probably spent too much time on during the strategy show, but you kind of have to. I mean, at the time when the ownership projections had first dropped on our site on awesemo.com, some of these Cleveland players, which projected to be really high in ownership, they've, pretty much most of them have come down. Sure, you still have like Burks up there, Clarkson. I can tell you this much. Any Cleveland players that have high projected ownership makes it really easy for me to stay away from them. Just in terms of Sexton being cheap and being honestly a pretty similar player to Burks and Clarkson, I don't hate it. But these guys are really just, if you land up or you end up on them, okay, cap your ownership, cap your exposure. Burks, well, let's talk about him for a second because the minutes have been there. Rodney Hood's gone, but it's still Alec Burks. And he still, despite these minutes, has an ungodly low usage rate, right? Look at his shot volume over these games where he's seen his minutes rise dramatically. And it's not like he's getting to the line at a high clip. It's pretty unappealing when you consider how low his usage has been, despite having so many no-name players on this Cavs team.
Right. He's at about 17.5% over the last month. And
Crazy.
right. And like while you lose Hood, you lose Chetty. Obviously, you can see that go up. It's not a given because it's not like Hood is out there chucking a ton of shots. He's like an
Right.
18 to 19% guy. Chetty had seen his usage go up very recently, but prior to that, he was like a 16 to 17% guy. I'm certainly not just like jamming Alec Burks in for like a 23 or 24% usage rate in this game. And it's obviously a difficult spot. It's a price tag that it's not that it's expensive, but it's not like he's dirt cheap either. You know, he's more expensive than some of the Boston guys. So I just really don't have a lot of interest in any of the Cleveland players.
Yeah, makes it tough. And seeing them at this projected ownership to me was actually pretty surprising. I do understand there isn't a ton of value here, but you would think there would be enough on an 8-game slate. It is kind of weak in terms of value, though. Obviously Marcus Morris being ruled out later in the morning after we knew Kyrie Irving was out obviously opens things up for Gordon Hayward and your wing players for Boston. But usually we've got a little bit more here, and we'll keep moving here and be sure to break all of it down for you. We try and get to everything here on the deeper dive and not just skim the surface, but really I was gonna say dive deep, but I hate that. I hate that. It's not intentional. It's just part of my language, and I'm not gonna say it. Boston, though. What about Boston here? No Irving.
Yeah, obviously a lot more interest for me in the Boston side than the Cleveland side. With Kyrie out, obviously you get Terry Rozier playing probably 32 to 34 minutes. The price tag has certainly come up on him, though, to where I think he's very appropriately priced, 6,700 on DK and 7,000 on FanDuel. There's still some upside there. It's still a fine play. It's just that he's not the kind of automatic play that he was for a while when Kyrie would sit. And I haven't looked at our ownership projections yet, but my assumption is that you're going to see probably a little bit more ownership on Rozier than you should, just because he has been so good as a starter and because it's kind of the shiny new toy that everyone knows that they can go to. He's averaged just shy of a fantasy point per minute without Kyrie on the floor this season. I think that makes him and then obviously it's a great matchup against Cleveland. It makes him a good play here. But if he is projected to be the highest owned guy, point guard in this group, then I'm fine kind of moving some of that ownership elsewhere. But also a lot of other guys on this team. You have Jason Tatum at a very affordable price tag, should probably play 33 to 34 minutes, has a 24% usage rate without Kyrie or Morris on the floor this season. And, obviously a great matchup. Jaylen Brown, I assume, joins the starting lineup with Morris out. He has a 24.5% usage rate without Kyrie or Morris on the floor, probably plays about 32 minutes, averages a point per minute. So he's one of my favorite value plays on the slate. Marcus Smart in a nice spot, where for Smart to really hit a ceiling, you need him to have a surprisingly efficient shooting game or pick up defensive stats. And of course, Cleveland's a terrible team defensively. They've been better than I anticipated at not turning the ball over this season, but I'm not sure that continues from this point forward. This is a team that is, one, getting injured more with, you have Chetty out now. They're also getting younger. You just traded Rodney Hood. It's a team that I would expect, even though they've done a decent job of protecting the ball up to this point, I would expect them to, kind of get a little bit worse going forward.
Yeah, I mean, they're 15th in turnover rate, which is given that the pace they play. So really they're right around middle of the league. Turnovers per game, I think they're like bottom 6, meaning the 6th fewest. But that's also because they play so damn slow.
Right, exactly.
But the pace matters more in a case like this, unless they had the highest turnover rate in the league. It's a good point. Man, I'll tell you though, Adam, Gordon Hayward, before Morris was out, I said, okay, I'll comfortably ignore Gordon Hayward, go about my business. I've got no interest in it. This dude's been a ghost. And I'm not talking about his skin tone. I'm talking about Gordon Hayward being so unbelievably inefficient so often and seeing his minutes cut down to the point where, the truth is, man, and look, I kind of like him tonight because I don't have much of a choice. The truth is, though, I look at Hayward and I say, not that, all right, you're terrible, but even Brad Stevens has kind of said, okay, we've given this some time, and obviously I'm putting words in Brad Stevens' mouth, but the fact that Gordon Hayward's, average playing time is 21 to 24 minutes per game. For a guy that, mind you, Gordon Hayward is playing. It's not a particularly small salary, right? Like, he gets paid a lot of money, a lot of money. He's on. Do you know how much he's getting paid per year?
I do not.
Take a guess.
18.
31.
Little low.
31 million. Next year, 33. Next year, 34. 4 years, $128 million contract.
That's almost as bad as John Wall.
That's bad. And at least John Wall plays 38 minutes a game when he's out there,
not
right?
anymore, he doesn't.
Well, I said when he's out there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Craziness. So if you're playing this guy 21, 24 minutes a game, you can't be supremely confident in him either. Just saying.
Right. Yeah, it's a tough spot because, I mean, he has averaged a fantasy point per minute without Morris and without Kyrie. But that's also, I think you can tell just by looking at his games, it's not like it's a steady point per minute thing. It's like he goes out there and occasionally scores 45 fantasy points and then has like 5 games of 12 to even it out. And it ends up being a point per minute. So I'm also not really convinced he plays big minutes here. Like, I have him at 26, but I'm having trouble going higher than that. I mean, you can give minutes to guys like Semi. You can give minutes to other guys so that Hayward doesn't have to play a ton here.
Right. Again, still have interest in Hayward, but I do want to ask you this before we move on, because I think this is one of the more important aspects of this slate tonight. Gordon Hayward right now, his ownership is projected at 9% on DraftKings, on FanDuel coming in at 21%. He is 5K on both. Does that mean you have more interest on one site than the other just because of really how volatile and unproductive he's been?
I mean, the FanDuel price tag and position is obviously more appealing because small forward's pretty bad today, especially when you factor in the price tag that FanDuel has on Paul George. So I think that even though the ownership's higher on Hayward, I would still lean towards him on FanDuel.
Anything else for Boston here?
Horford on DraftKings. I don't really feel the need to pay $8K for Horford on FanDuel at center, but with power forward eligibility and only a $6,600 price tag on DraftKings, I do like him quite a bit there. Has a 26.5% usage rate without Kyrie on the floor. Has about a 20% assist percentage. Has about a 20% usage rate. I think that he's a good play specifically on DraftKings.
Of this entire Celtics team, nobody is a better per minute producer with Irving and Morris off the court, unless you include 10 minutes of PJ Dozier, but I don't think we're doing that. Al Horford at 1.2 fantasy points per minute, Rozier 1.07, Hayward at 1.06. This is the span of the entire year. Jaylen Brown at 1.01, Daniel Tice at 1 even. So there are a decent amount of players that really do benefit from this. Yeah. How many, before we move on, how many Celtics are too much in one lineup?
I'll probably cap it at 3. I'd consider 4 on DraftKings just because they are so cheap, but I'll probably cap it at 3.
And 4 seems kind of tough for me.
Yeah, especially because Cleveland just plays so slow.
Exactly.
Yeah, I guess to put them in order, and I've DraftKings pricing in front of me, but Jaylen Brown is my favorite, followed by Tatum, followed by Smart, followed by Horford, followed by Rozier, followed by Hayward.
Okay. Well, there it is. Charlotte, LA Clippers in Charlotte. Hornets 3.5-point favorites here with a 224 total. Our injuries. Gallinari out. He's been out. So basically, because of that injury, all of the prices are and have been, they've already corrected for that. Tobias Harris expects to play with that shoulder injury. I wonder when Mbah a Moute is coming back. Looks like he's getting close, but he's still out. Aside from that, well, that's it for the Clippers at least. And we've got Cody Zeller, who is probable for this game, back in the mix. $4,000 on DraftKings, Adam, and FanDuel 5,200. But I said to Josh this morning, Cody Zeller this season has been the guy that is very much a value play as your last man in, while you wait throughout the day for something to open up so you don't have to play Cody Zeller. But he's kind of, that security where if you really need someone, he's there. You'll get your 25 or so from him and move on, but not someone you ever feel great about. Although this matchup with the Clippers for opposing centers has been very friendly this year. Let's talk about the Hornets.
Yeah, so I mean, Zeller, Emac and I talked about it on the pod quite a bit, and I think the price tag on DraftKings at 4K is absolutely fine on a point per dollar basis. It's just that you have to account for the fact that you're taking up a roster spot for someone who, unless I see otherwise, I assume isn't going out there and playing 30 plus minutes tonight.
We just got news that he's coming off the bench. By the way, thank you to the basketball gods. You have been good to us lately for the deeper dive. Cody Zeller, perfect timing. Look, that's amazing when you think about it. Coming off of the bench today, Adam. Pretty big news, whether you're considering him or not.
Yeah, pretty big news for Kemba also. Yeah, so just I don't even have to finish what I was saying about it. Like, I don't think he plays 30 minutes. Even if he gets you like 24 fantasy points at 4K, when you factor in the roster spot that he took, it's not really that helpful. So I don't really see going to Zeller here. The bigger thing is that I was really excited for Kemba to get some more time with Zeller on the floor. Has averaged, so I'm a little less interested in Kemba now because, obviously he's not starting with Zeller. He's averaged almost 1.3 points per minute with Zeller compared to 1.1 without him. The usage percentage drops from about 30% to 24%, or not usage, assist percentage drops from about 30% to 24%. The effective field goal percentage drops like 9 points. So I was going to say I really liked Kemba in tournaments here, assuming people would kind of look away because of recent games, but I still don't really like him that much.
That hurts. Yeah, it does. Unless Zeller plays like 30 minutes off the bench. But I don't see that being the case. It's just a hand injury, but he has been out for, like 40 days or something. So it's been quite a long stretch for him to be sidelined, like 35 days, actually. That's a good amount.
Did they say who was starting?
We don't have that information yet. I do not think. Let me just make sure here. No, we don't have that yet. I'll obviously let you know when we do.
I'm guessing
go ahead.
I'm guessing it's Biyombo, like, again.
Yeah. I don't see why it wouldn't be, right?
Yeah, especially because I think Boban's starting for the Clippers.
That's gonna, yeah. Well, before we get to the Clippers, what are we doing with the Marvin Williams and the Jeremy Lambs and such, and of course the Malik Monks, who, the biggest thing for Monk with me is this dude is entirely dependent on scoring 100%, and his minutes, it's not like he's seeing abundant minutes. Now, obviously, recently Jeremy Lamb's playing time has decreased. Jeremy Lamb has played under 27 or fewer minutes in 4 straight games. 23, 26 in 2 of those and 14 in the other. But Monk is getting some more run. It's just he's so dependent on scoring that if he's not knocking down shots, he's going to disappoint. So I guess the question is Monk at 3,800 and on FanDuel 4,600, is that worth the low upside and the high risk with a guy that does not produce outside of shooting?
I'd rather just go to Tony Parker because I mean, obviously the minutes are volatile with him, and like last game he didn't play any minutes alongside Kemba, but we've seen Borrego change his rotation on a night-to-night basis all season long. We've seen plenty of times where Parker does play alongside Kemba. You're facing a Clippers team that has Gilgeous-Alexander, Beverly, and Bradley all playing at once. There's no reason that the Hornets can't go really small here, and Parker's even a little bit cheaper than Monk is and a better producer. So if I'm taking that risk, I'd rather just go to Parker.
Yeah, I'd rather go to neither of them, but I get where you're going with it. I get where you're going with it. Any Marvin Williams for you?
I think that Zeller coming off the bench hurts him a bit as well. I just knocked a couple minutes off of him because when I projected this rotation, I basically gave Zeller his 24. I gave like 8 minutes to whichever of Biyombo or Hernan-Gomez, and then I gave the rest of the center minutes to Williams. But if Biyombo's starting, you kind of assume he plays something like at least, 14 to 16 minutes. And then if Zeller still is going to get 20 to 24, you're kind of running out of minutes there for Williams.
Right. Yeah. And Marvin Williams, he's another one of those safety valve type guys. You're not playing him because he's winning tournaments for you. I mean, is it possible that Williams goes out, has a good game against a pace up Clippers team? Sure. But I will point out the Clippers over the last month are playing really just middle of the league in pace. Nothing extraordinarily high here. So it's not a huge difference. Charlotte's playing slow, so it's still a pace up spot. But it's nothing like we've seen from the Nets or the Thunder or the Bucks or the Hawks. Definitely worth pointing out there. On the other side of this game, we've got the LA Clippers. Gallinari out, Harris expected to play. We should see another 3 guard starting lineup, as you mentioned, with Beverly and Gilgeous-Alexander and Avery Bradley, and then anywhere between 25 and 27 and 38 minutes from Lou Williams. 35. I mean, obviously 38's a stretch, but it's very possible that depending on how Lou Williams is playing, he sees quite a bit of run and is really the go-to offensive, really the go-to scorer and go-to distributor, do-it-all player for the Clippers. So let's talk about this backcourt first, and then we'll talk about, of course, Boban and the front court.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a nice bounce back spot for Williams just because the game against Toronto was just about as bad as you can get in multiple, aspects. It's not an easy matchup. It was a road back-to-back. It was a weird travel schedule with like a 5 o'clock game followed by an afternoon game on a road back-to-back. So I'm not really, holding that one against him. I have him projected for 32 minutes here. 33% usage, 33% assist percentage without Gallinari on the floor this year. So I do have some interest in him in tournaments. The problem, I guess, is that the shooting guard position, it's not really strong, but there is some value there, and it's some of the best value on the slate with Jaylen Brown, with Marcus Smart. You have Andrew Wiggins, who's less expensive as well. So from a roster construction standpoint, it can be kind of tough to get to Williams. I do like that the price tag has come back down on Pat Beverly, sitting at 5,200 on DraftKings, I think 55 or 56 on FanDuel. We've seen the Clippers get blown out a couple of times lately, and it's hurt Beverly's minutes. But in competitive games, I still think he gets into the mid-30s here and, is reasonably priced.
Yeah, I don't have an issue with it. Another one of those volatile players where it could get really ugly really quick, but even in the blowouts, you're still seeing 30 minutes from Beverly. The truth is, in order for Beverly generally to get where you want him to go, you'd like to see 35 plus, and I expect that to be the case tonight. With Boban, by the way, well, we'll get to that. I was going to say the Indy Lakers game. We'll talk about that next. Miles Turner's a game time decision now. That could change a lot if he doesn't play. It is a 7 p.m. Eastern game, so it's one of the first. It is the first lock time on the slate, so that's good. But we'll have to keep an eye out for that. Boban Marjanovic, Montrezl Harrell. Let's talk about this Clippers front court. Boban last game played 17 minutes, 17 the game before that. Those came against a big Detroit front court, but then against Toronto. Now he's facing the likes of Bismack Biyombo and Cody Zeller, but if he starts, would be against Bismack Biyombo, presumably.
Yeah, so I mean, we got news earlier today that Harrell's not expected to remain in the starting lineup. We've seen Boban replace Gortat recently, so I assume it's going to be him. If it is, I have him projected for like 18 minutes. It's not like this is a big. I guess with Zeller back, it is bigger, but in recent starts from Boban, we've seen 18 to 20 minutes normally, and I don't think that Harrell just like loses his playing time against. Because he's going against like Cody Zeller or something. So I'm not projecting a ton of minutes here, but especially on DraftKings where you can roster 2 centers and he's only 3,500, there's not a lot of value on this slate. And he obviously is the best permanent producer out of any of it. So certainly have interest in him here.
Right. And, if you look against Detroit, this is a different situation where Harrell played 36 minutes and Boban still played. What did he play? 17 minutes there. So obviously some overlap, but that's the Detroit Pistons are a different type of team. You don't need that. You don't need that against the Charlotte Hornets, but I think putting him around 17, 18 minutes again seems pretty reasonable.
Yeah, I have him at 18. I have Harrell at 30.
Right. Well, yeah, because you don't expect any overlap there. I don't, at least.
Right.
That would be surprising to say the least. But Montrezl Harrell and Boban, let's see, in that last game, Harrell and Boban played about 1, 2, 3. Where they play 3 minutes alongside each other. So they did play a few minutes though together. Nothing significant, but Not something I'd expect to see again today at all. I would be shocked. So whatever you have Harrell at, subtract that from 48, and hopefully that's what you get with Boban. Unless, of course, Marcin Gortat re-enters the rotation, which you never – I mean, really, you never know.
Yeah.
You never know. Anything else for the Clippers here?
Gilgeous-Alexander, I mean, value sucks on the slate. He probably plays around 30 minutes, especially if he's playing well, which is always nice in tournaments to have, a little bit more upside if your guy is playing well. So, no issues with him, but I do prefer Beverly.
All right, let's talk about Pacers and Lakers. Third game here, the third and last 7 p.m. game. You got the Lakers on the road against Indy. They're 2.5-point favorites, 217.5 total. LeBron's going to play in this one. But pretty big news here. If Turner doesn't play, and mind you, this is the second game of a back-to-back. The second game of a back-to-back, they played on the road yesterday as well. So traveling from New Orleans to Indiana, back to Indiana. If Turner doesn't play, then Domantas Sabonis will be the most popular play on this slate. I don't even know if it will be close. He is $5,600 on DraftKings. He's $63 on FanDuel. And we're talking about a player who, with Oladipo off the court this year to begin with, has already been like a 1.3 fantasy point per minute guy. So you take that, you take Oladipo being off. Tyreek Evans has obviously been completely inefficient and just useless, especially given how they use him, which is wrong. And then potentially take Miles Turner off the court. Well, that opens things up. Sabonis 1.32 fantasy points per minute in 812 minutes without Oladipo this year. This could be an absolutely incredible spot for Sabonis. We're not even taking into consideration that it comes in a good matchup against the Lakers. But we still have to wait on Turner, of course.
Right. I mean, I like Sabonis even if Turner's in. He just becomes he just becomes
the best play on the slate.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll roster him either way, but I'll just have a lot more if Turner sits. If Turner plays, I like Turner a lot. I mean, he's affordable. He's playing like 32 minutes in competitive games where he's not in foul trouble. It's a good matchup for him. He sees a usage bump without Oladipo as well. I'm guessing he doesn't play, but again, we'll have this news, so it doesn't really matter. Whichever center is playing, I like a lot. If it's Sabonis, it just makes him one of the easiest plays on the slate, especially because he has power forward eligibility.
Yeah, the easiest play. And honestly, I had a question on Twitter, like, what's too high owned of a player for you not to play him? And it's not. I'm trying to explain, like, because it's a fine question, but it's slate dependent, number one, and then it's dependent on whether or not it's good chalk. Like, is he somebody that could easily finish with 12 fantasy points? Is his ceiling high enough to justify it? So on and so forth. Point I'm making here, Adam, Domantas Sabonis against the Lakers at 5,600. If Miles Turner doesn't play, I wouldn't care what I honestly won't even look at ownership when it comes to him, because and I'm sure Turner will sit and Sabonis will have like 15 fantasy points, but you know how it works. There's just no justification to saying, I think there's a big advantage to not playing him. If it was 7,000, 7,200. Remember, he got up above 8K when Turner was out before. Talking 5,600. We're looking at the same price point, on DraftKings as guys like Cedi Osman. Obviously he's out, but Jeremy Grant, Jonathan Isaac, Kevin Knox, Jaren Jackson Jr., Sabonis starting at center over Turner, getting 30 minutes against the Lakers. I don't see any edge to not playing him. I really wouldn't.
Right, and I mean, you can pretty quickly just kind of gauge it as, are there options around him that can beat him without like something just going catastrophically wrong? And the answer in this spot is really no. I mean, who at 5,600 is averaging around 1.3 fantasy points per minute and playing 30 plus minutes tonight other than Sabonis? Like, you can take a 20% cut off of his per minute production and he's still the best point per dollar play in that price range.
Right. And I'm glad you mentioned catastrophically wrong, because anything can happen, but just very unlikely is all. Setting myself up for failure here. You can tweet me when I get it wrong at Lofty_D. You can hit Adam up at Ship My Money DFS. Let's talk about the rest of this Pacers team, though, because with or without Turner, they are still kind of interesting. Like Bogdanovich in competitive games, and again, they are playing a back-to-back after playing on the road last night. But Bogdanovich, you look at his minutes, 35, 38, 33 over his last few games. Outside of yesterday, the shot volume had looked pretty solid. Jonathan Simmons out for Orlando, by the way, for those of you making lineups while you watch the show, if that affects you at all. Maybe more Terrence Ross, whatever, we'll get there. But then you've got Darren Collison, who after that dismal game, first one without Oladipo and Evans, has looked so much better and has really played well. He hit the backbreaker over the Pelicans yesterday with like 20 seconds left. And then Corey Joseph still starting, Thaddeus Young as well. And they're all in that, it's funny, they're all in that 6K range, especially on DraftKings. Collison, 64. Bogdanovich, 6K flat. Thad Young, 6,100. Miles Turner, 65. Let's get into the rest of this Pacers team.
I like all of them. They all kind of, without Oladipo on the floor, they all average right around like 0.95 fantasy points per minute. With McDermott out, not that that's a huge deal, but it is, like 14 minutes that, it helps to solidify Bogdanovich's minutes. It helps to solidify Thad Young's minutes. And it's obviously a huge pace-up spot against the Lakers, who are a good defensive team, but it doesn't matter that much when you're getting all these extra possessions. If these guys are going to go overlooked again, like they were last night, then I'll go right back to them in tournaments. Because if you just think about it from a math standpoint, like Terry Rozier, clearly in a great spot against Cleveland, he's a good play. There's not really arguing that. But without Kyrie, he averages like 0.96 fantasy points per minute. Without Oladipo, Collison averages about 0.94 fantasy points per minute. They should be projected for very similar playing time. Collison against a tougher defense in a faster-paced game. Rozier, easier defense, slower-paced game. They project very, very similarly. There shouldn't be a big ownership gap between them. And if there is, I'll take the lower owned one. The same kind of thing can be said for like Thad Young and Aaron Gordon. I like Gordon quite a bit, but Thad Young's in a really good spot as well. He's close to a point per minute guy and should play around 34 minutes. So these guys just end up being really good tournament plays for me if people are going to go a different direction.
Yeah, we actually have Rozier projected for considerably less ownership on FanDuel. 18% for Collison, 9% for Rozier. And then on DraftKings, Rozier all the way down there, 3%. That seems low, but people don't like paying those premiums. Collison currently at 7%. Both of them projected pretty low ownership right now. Obviously, we'll keep a close watch on that throughout the show once we get an update and let you know. Or, of course, you can head over to awesemo.com and get 50% off your first month. You can check it out yourself because these ownership projections have been really helpful. But not just that. You have the lineup builder. You got all of Awesemo, Alex Baker, his site, his name, all of his content as well, his projections, rankings. You have the lineup builder, Fantasy Cruncher add-on, the deep dive from Adam and myself, projections for all sports, and pretty much everything I haven't mentioned. You can go check it out yourself. Very simple. Just go to awesemo.com, click join now, and select your plan. When you have a coupon, click that, put in deeper dive, one word, deeper dive, check out. It takes a matter of less than a minute to get signed up. Use the promo code deeper dive, one word, to get 50% off your first month of subscription at awesemo.com. And we hope to see you over there. All right, let's flip to the other side of this. We'll stay tuned for any updates on Miles Turner as well. And we do have our starting lineup for the Celtics: Rozier, Smart, Brown, Tatum, and Horford. So Rozier and Brown into the starting lineup. Hayward remains off the bench, but I don't think that's much of a surprise. The LA Lakers, you got LeBron James at 10-7 on DraftKings and 10-8 on FanDuel. Did you ever think you'd see LeBron James 700 less than Paul George? It's kind of surprising.
Yeah, that's pretty insane. Not even, I mean, it's defensible. It's just.
Oh, yeah, George has been spectacular. Yeah. I just mean, when you think of like their names before the season, you never would have expected that to be the case. But LeBron James being back, like, undoubtedly takes value away from a handful of players. Kyle Kuzma is probable. Yes, his price tag has come down. Ingram is down as well. They're both much cheaper than they were, but not super cheap. Rondo is one guy who, even in that game with LeBron James back, still was rebounding well, still was getting dimes, still got it done, and still is playing huge minutes. Where do you stand on the Lakers here, especially given that you like the Pacers so much? Do you want to run it back with LeBron or with Rondo or any of these, musical chairs centers?
I don't really have much of anything from the Lakers outside of LeBron on FanDuel because, again, that position's really bad. He's cheaper than Paul George. Should play around 36 minutes here. He's averaged 1.44 fantasy points per minute this season. There's no reason, I don't think, not to like him on FanDuel. On DraftKings, where obviously there's a lot more roster flexibility, I can take, cheap Boston guys. I can spend that money on Russell Westbrook instead. I can do a lot of different things. And so on DraftKings, I don't think I'll really get to much of anything from this game. Kuzma, the price tag is fine, but there's a lot of guys around him that are good plays. You see him drop to a 22% usage rate when LeBron's on the floor. Ingram basically becomes a completely different player when he plays with LeBron.
Yeah.
His permanent production just falls off of a cliff. Rondo, I think, is fine, but he does lose some in the way of assists when he plays with LeBron. And point guard's pretty stacked today. So I really, on DraftKings, don't see me getting to much of anything from the Lakers.
Yeah, it's tough. If there was one non-LeBron player for me, it would be Rondo. And really just because, yes, he loses value, but everybody does. It doesn't matter who you are. If LeBron's active, you're losing value. But at least with Rondo, no matter who he's played around, he's always been able to hold his own in terms of still rebounds, still going to see facilitating opportunities. And he'll still get enough shots up, even though it might only be, 12. I think Rondo's a fine play, but you're right. There are enough options, especially middle tier, high end options where he's not a necessity at all. It's just Brandon Ingram. His value falls off a cliff, even though he's come down in price. Really tough to get there. You want to move on to the next one here?
Yep.
Let's talk about the Pistons and the Knicks. Madison Square Garden. Knicks 3.5-point dogs. We got a 207 total here. Let's go ahead and look at the Knicks' last game and see what we can glean from this. It was the 3rd of February. It came against the Memphis Grizzlies. I'm sure the fans got their money's worth, huh? But it was, obviously an ugly game. It's bad when the Grizzlies are running away with games at this stage. Dennis Smith Jr., though, we'll start there and we'll move our way down. Played 3 minutes in the first quarter, picked up 2 quick fouls, right? And then he sees 8.5 minutes in the second quarter. Okay, so 11 minutes. Not great. But then in the third quarter, plays 4 minutes, no fouls. Didn't pick up any fouls in the second quarter. So plays 4 minutes. So I sit here asking myself, and by the way, he played 9.5 minutes in the fourth quarter to close it out and play a total of around 26 minutes. But I sit here asking myself, is Dennis Smith Jr.'s first and second half starting rotation going to be 4 minutes long? Like, is that what I should expect? Because it's so hard for me to think, yeah, that makes sense. Kadeem Allen should play, a big chunk of those minutes and take away from the guy that the Knicks just traded for and could have drafted first round over Frank Ntilikina last year. To me, I feel like Dennis Smith could get up to 30 plus minutes. And if he does, I'm kind of interested. But with David Fizdale, your guess is always as good as mine.
Yeah, I love Dennis Smith Jr. here. There's obvious risk. It's Fizdale. It's the Knicks. That everyone knows that. But I have him projected for 30 minutes. I wouldn't be surprised if he plays more.
Me too.
And you had foul trouble in the first quarter. You had at the start of the first half, you had the Grizzlies go on a 15-3 run. You had 0 stats coming from Dennis Smith Jr. outside of a turnover. So, a turnover and an assist. I think it was just kind of a weird game there. I know Fizdale tends to misrepresent himself a lot when he talks about what he wants to do with his players, but there's no reason, at least at this point, to not take him at his word that he plans on playing Dennis Smith Jr. a lot and really trying to turn him into the player that he thinks he can, become. So I like Smith for that reason. Like, I'm not projecting him for 25 minutes again. I think he gets up, at least 30. But also, he was it didn't show up in the stat line, but there were all kinds of opportunities there for him in that game. For one, he had a 24.8% usage rate, which is good. In like 118 minutes with the Mavs this season without Luka or JJ Barea on the floor, you had a 27.8% usage rate, almost a 10% rebounding percentage, 36.5% assist percentage. That's pretty similar to playing on the Mavs without Luka or without Barea is pretty similar to what he's playing with with the Knicks here from a usage standpoint for other guys, and he averaged 1.13 points per minute. So I don't think he should have any trouble getting usage here. But in his 25 minutes against Memphis, he had 12 potential assists. Only 6 were converted into actual assists. He had 11 rebounding chances. Only 3 became rebounds. But he was in position to get a lot of things done. It just didn't break his way. I think that this is a really nice bounce back spot. I like the underlying numbers from that game against Memphis, even though he was awful from a fantasy standpoint.
Dude, I'm right there with you. If you didn't take that away from my long rant a second ago.
Yeah.
Because it just why I get playing him for 25, 26 minutes if you had even remotely decent alternatives. Now, of course, yes, I get it. You're not trying to win games. But Adam, let's not kid ourselves. 25 or 5 extra minutes, 7 extra minutes from Dennis Smith is not the difference between a win and a loss for the Knicks. In terms of getting that top draft pick, whatever you want to do. That's not making the difference. Okay. I think he gets up there, and the big thing for me is you are playing on a team where you're playing alongside DeAndre Jordan. DeAndre Jordan takes none of your essential stats away from you. Yeah, sure. Kevin Knox gets some shots up, but Damian Dotson, Wes Matthews played 28 minutes off the bench, had 0 points until the fourth quarter. Alonzo Trier, Hazonia, Kadeem Allen, Luke Cornett. Dennis Smith should be able to GOAT here. Will he? I don't know. But if he plays 30, 32 minutes, I think you'll probably be pretty satisfied with the results. But again, everyday disclaimer, we just think he's going to play 30 minutes. It's not a guarantee, it never is. But God, you look at the rest of that backcourt rotation, there's no reason he shouldn't. It's kind of that simple.
He's one of my favorite tournament plays on the entire slate, regardless of position.
Yeah, I'm with you. Absolutely. All right, let's move it a little bit forward here. Wesley Matthews, 28 minutes. I just you can talk about him if you'd like. I'll pass. I don't see it. DeAndre Jordan, I don't think is a bad play at 6,200. I do think there's some center plays in a similar range that you can get to. He played 29 minutes last game and did close that game out. But DeAndre Jordan also only played 4 minutes in the first quarter. So I don't know what to make of that. He played in the third quarter. DeAndre Jordan played almost, 9 minutes, but 4 minutes in the first quarter.
Yeah, I don't really obviously have much confidence in projecting this rotation. The one thing I do like for Jordan is that they're playing the Pistons. So even with Mitchell Robinson coming back, I think you can Fizdale could pretty easily, if he wants to, get Jordan 30 minutes, get Robinson his 16, still get Cornett 16, because Cornett can just play at the 4 here. So I do have Jordan at 30 minutes. It's not a very confident 30 minutes, but it's very reasonable in this matchup against a big Detroit front court. Kevin Knox is the only other guy that I have at 30 or more minutes. He's just awful, so I don't really intend on rostering him. Just more pointing out that everyone else on this team I have at less than 30 minutes. Vonleh I have at 26. He comes in as a decent play at 5,200, but nothing special for me. Wes Matthews at 3,900 is okay, but nothing special. I think he probably loses a few minutes. Smith's easily my favorite play, followed by Jordan and Vonleh.
Agreed. Gibbs asked Bayless or Dennis Smith Jr. in tournaments. Give me Dennis Smith in tournaments all day there.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll have a lot of both of them, but if I were making one lineup, I would take the lower owned one. And if they were even or close to even, I would take Smith.
I think if you're looking for a tournament ceiling here, it's so much higher with Smith. I really do. I mean, I know that sounds crazy because we haven't seen, wild production from him, but Bayless is, going up against Memphis, and I get it. It's a team that he put up solid numbers against the other day, but I still see Bayless more in that 30 some range, and I like Smith more here. What do you have on the Detroit Pistons?
They're playing the Knicks, which is good.
That's always good, yeah.
Yeah. So yesterday was really disappointing if you had Blake. He played 23 minutes. He didn't play at all in the fourth because the Pistons were just crushing Denver. What'd you say?
They smoked the Nuggets.
Yeah. Stanley Johnson had like probably his fourth quarter probably qualifies as like his third best game of the entire season.
What do you have, 13 and 10 or something in the fourth?
13,
Ridiculous.
6, 2, and 2 in the fourth quarter.
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, you have prior to that though, in his last 5 games, you got 42, 39, 39, 40, 38 minutes from Blake. He's playing huge minutes in competitive games. This game has a 3-point spread with Detroit on the road back to back. He's still less than $9,000 on DraftKings. He's affordable on FanDuel as well. Friendly matchup, still leads the team in usage and assist percentage, and got a nice little rest yesterday. So I like going back to Blake here. I like Drummond as well, though I still like him a little bit less than Blake.
All right, let's talk about Memphis, Minnesota. By the way, Ish Smith is out, so maybe Reggie Jackson can get back to seeing the 35 minutes he'd been seeing when Ish Smith was sidelined. He's out for rest purposes. So Memphis and Minnesota. Memphis Grizzlies at home here inside the Grindhouse. 1-point dogs, 206.5 point total. What do you got here with guys like Conley and Gasol? Do they do anything for you in this spot?
Not a whole lot. I have them as like pretty neutral plays where if I get there, I'm fine with it. But there's just players at their respective positions that I like more at their price tags. Like I have them both projected for right around 40 points, which is obviously good. It's just that point guard is pretty deep, especially with like the lower mid range where you can save some money off of Conley. Center's pretty deep up at the top. And then also you're going to have either Sabonis or Turner as a good play. You have, Boban potentially for some value. So it's just really, really tough for me to get to either of these guys with a lot of frequency.
Yeah, me too. Just not huge here on it. I think Gasol's priced reasonably. I don't have an issue with it. I probably don't want to get to Conley despite him playing well. I don't hate it. I don't. If I saw him in lineups, I wouldn't be like, oh, what are you doing? But that price is a little bit restrictive on DraftKings, and then seeing Mike Conley up over 9K or at 9K on FanDuel is also a little bit difficult. What do you make of the rest of this Memphis squad? We're still, of course, waiting on JaMychal Green's status. I don't really know if it even makes a big difference at this point. And of course, Kyle Anderson remains sidelined. Garrett Temple is doubtful to play. So we should see another 38 pretty useless minutes from Justin Holiday. But hey, they are 38 minutes if you're looking for it.
Yeah, I mean, Jaren Jackson at 5,200, I still have interest in, like always. If Green's out, it helps to solidify his minutes even more. It really just comes down to if he can manage not to foul people, which is obviously a huge if, but 5,200 point per dollar guy playing 28 to 30 minutes with some upside. If Green's out, and this isn't anything you shouldn't have this with like a ton of frequency, but it's just worth pointing out. If Green's out, that does open up a few minutes at the 4. We've seen Noah and Gasol playing alongside each other more. This is a monster front court for Minnesota. We saw them play like somewhere between 2 and 4 minutes alongside each other the last time, but 20 minutes of Noah really isn't much different than 18 minutes of Boban, but you would just have substantially higher ownership on Boban. So just as a tournament pivot amongst, really cheap guys, I think that's worth pointing out.
Okay. Minnesota side, Jared Bayless playing again without Tyus Jones, without Derrick Rose, Jeff Teague unlikely. I think he's still doubtful, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's still doubtful. Bayless is probably going to play, another 35 plus minutes here. So there you go. It's 2019 and he's legitimately relevant. And he's getting good opportunities. The potential assists have been through the roof. And really, I mentioned it this morning. They don't have anybody else to distribute on this team. Karl Anthony Towns is like the second best passer outside of Jared Bayless. So he doesn't really run the risk of not seeing those opportunities unless Isaiah Cannon comes in and plays 30 minutes. But that's not going to happen. So, yeah, Bayless is here once again. It might be Memphis. It might be the slowest paced team in the league, but we kind of know what we're going to get from him in terms of opportunity and minutes. And that's more than you can say for a lot of guys in his price range.
Yeah, and the thing that I noticed today when I was writing the article that made me feel a little bit better about him, because I still have trouble pulling the trigger on Jared Bayless. Like I like the price tag, obviously.
Yeah,
I love the minutes he's playing, but it's still Jared Bayless. But I was actually surprised when I looked, because I was expecting to look, and I knew he'd been averaging around almost 0.9 fantasy points per minute with Cat and Wiggins on the floor without Rose or Teague. And I was expecting to see he'd like been shooting the lights out, but he has like a 45% effective field goal percentage. He's not shooting well at all, and he's still producing at a very nice clip for Jared Bayless. So I like him here. I think the price tag's still too cheap. I like Dennis Smith more, as we just talked about. but definitely one of the better value plays to me.
I think so too. Are you getting the Wiggins? I'm not really getting to Wiggins here.
Not a ton. The position is weak is the one thing that I like, but still would rather get the Brown, would rather get the Smart. 6K price tag though is pretty nice. I just have him behind Bayless. I have him behind Towns on his team.
What are you doing with Towns at $9,700 on DraftKings?
Playing a lot of him, I would think.
You would think so.
Yeah, 1.6 fantasy points per minute alongside Wiggins without Rose or Teague this year since the Butler trade. Not a great matchup against Memphis, obviously. Dealing with Gasol, picked up 20 or only played 26 minutes last game because of fouls. But the price tag, like sub 10K on Towns, is just insane when Rose and Teague are out.
Anyone else?
No.
Let's talk about another 8 p.m. game here. We've got OKC at home against Orlando. They are pretty big favorites, 10 points, 224 total. Russell Westbrook, 4 straight triple doubles now. Sorry, 5, 6 straight triple doubles now. Yeah, averaging a triple double for his 3rd straight season, but no question deferring to Paul George in some spots on offense kind of doesn't matter. This is one thing that I think is kind of important with Westbrook, though, being that his scoring is definitely down, and I'm not sure it's going to come up consistently anytime soon with just the way George has been leading this offense and the way they're winning a lot of basketball games. Is Westbrook is more appealing to me on DraftKings, where that double bonus means so much, and the less points docked for turnovers means more. I do think that he is a better suited player for DraftKings, kind of more now than ever, even though it's always been that way. Just the fact, though, that the triple doubles really help him out. You're adding a lot of points on there when you need as many points as you can get at that price point.
Yeah, I agree with you completely on that. I like him a lot on DraftKings here. If you look over the last month, he's averaged 1.48 points per minute for the last month for the whole season. He has a 30% usage rate over the last month. Over the last 2 weeks, he's down to 27.7% as we've seen George kind of take over things for a while. But the assist percentage has also jumped to about 51% for Westbrook. The rebounding percentage has jumped to 18.5%. So he's still just contributing in so many different ways. Orlando has actually been efficient defensively, and they play slow, so it's not the best matchup in that area, but obviously he's matchup proof. The price tag's still affordable. So, I still like Westbrook a lot.
So do I. Where are you at on Paul George? Been a revelation, man.
Yeah, I'm really torn on what to do with him because obviously he's been really good this season, but that's like 1.35 points per minute good, not what he's been doing lately, which is almost 1.6. His effective field goal percentage over his last 5 games is at 65%. For the season, he's at like 54%. His usage rate is up, but not by any like monster numbers that we would expect to continue. Same goes for his rebounding and his assists. So he's playing really, really well, but at the same time, you can't expect him to keep shooting like that. On FanDuel, I really don't see the need to get to him. On DraftKings at 10-2, it's different. I think that I'll still probably have some because I have him projected for 38 minutes. I'm projected for a 30+% usage rate. So I think he's still a good play there. It's just, pay attention to ownership, because if people are going to chase these recent games from him, it's worth keeping in mind that he's just been shooting a lot better than normal.
Yeah, he has. He's still there. I mean, I have a tough time getting to him over LeBron on like FanDuel.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and on DraftKings, 10-2, it's not that bad, but pretty similarly close to James. He has been outstanding though, so I would talk nobody off of Paul George. Anyone else for OKC coming up against it here?
Yeah, no problems with Steven Adams.
For Orlando, you like Aaron Gordon?
Yeah. Up tempo game for him, playing huge minutes. Even like last game where he disappointed, he shot like 19 times or 17 times. And he should spend plenty of time defending one of George or Westbrook. So while there is some foul risk there's plenty of opportunity for defensive stats as well. It's just too cheap of a price tag, I think, for a guy playing 38 minutes in competitive games.
I think so too, and I love the pace up spots for Gordon. They really suit him well. He's a pretty volatile player, but it's kind of baked into his price tag right now. 6,200 on DraftKings is nice. I definitely like that. 66 on FanDuel. I just really think you're getting a very fair price on Gordon. He'll have some ownership for sure, but I do like him here. And I think, look, if you're looking for pivots off of more popular players, Somebody like Terrence Ross, who shouldn't be that popular. I like him in this spot. I like him as a tournament play. What else do you have for Orlando?
Yeah, I'm with you on Ross. Vooch, obviously, it's Vooch. He's really, really good. It's tough for me to get there over Towns with the
Right.
guys out for Minnesota. But whatever Vooch I get, I will be happy with.
All right. Let's close it out. We got two games here. One I don't believe we're going to spend a whole lot of time on, but Philly and Toronto, Sixers 3-point favorites, 231 total. Lowry went from doubtful to now he's playing and didn't know why he was listed as doubtful. That is true. So no more Fred VanVleet, who would have been the most popular play on this slate. What do you got for the Sixers here? Ben Simmons is $8,600 on DraftKings.
Yeah, there's a big difference on this team between FanDuel and DraftKings on Embiid, Simmons, and Butler. $7,500 Butler with forward and guard eligibility. I like on DraftKings. I don't feel the need to pay $8,600 for Butler at shooting guard on FanDuel nearly as much. Same goes for Simmons. $8,600 on DraftKings I think is a phenomenal play here. Toronto actually over the last month ranks in the middle of the pack in pace and defensive rating. And even if they didn't, it's just a really inexpensive price tag for Ben Simmons. On FanDuel, though, point guard eligible and towards the top of the price range there. So not as interesting. And then Embiid, also 10-5 on DraftKings. This guy since the start of January, he's averaging 1.7 DraftKings points per minute. Granted, some of those games were without Jimmy Butler, but even in the last 5 or 6 games he's played with Butler, he has usage rates up, at like 39, 44.8, 37% in some of those games. So we're really seeing him just take over games. Toronto, he hasn't had a lot of success against them in the past, but there's no real reason. I don't think Serge Ibaka is someone that I expect to shut him down consistently, so I'm not really factoring that in. He also played more minutes last game, which could continue with Wilson Chandler out and Muscala playing more at the 4. Even if it doesn't, in 34 minutes, I like Embiid a lot. So much better DraftKings plays than FanDuel plays. You also have $3,500 TJ McConnell probably playing around 26 minutes as a value play here.
All right. Yeah, I'm with you there. Pretty much would repeat everything you said. That price on Simmons on DraftKings is really appealing to it. It certainly is. And I just like that he's been more aggressive. Toronto side of the ball, are you getting to any Kawhi? I know we generally don't. Any Serge Ibaka here at a low 6K price point, or anybody else on this Raptors team?
Not getting a lot of anything. Pascal is my favorite play here just because he doesn't really take a hit when he plays with Leonard. He still should average around a fantasy point per minute, but not a lot that I like from this team. I like the Philadelphia side a lot more.
Me too. Yeah, a lot of depth here, and I think Toronto's all priced pretty reasonably. Do you have any Kawhi right now?
I haven't run a crunch yet, but I doubt that I end up with that much. I haven't projected for like 48.5 DraftKings points, which puts him way below guys like Vooch and Towns at different positions.
All right. Our hopes of a super chalk Sabonis have been dashed. Miles Turner is available to play.
Good.
Let's close it out here. By the way, I tell people this a lot, and I appreciate you giving us information in Slack chat and stuff. Our stream is delayed like 8 or 9 seconds from when we're talking. So I'm putting it out as it happens. Just it's 8 or 9 seconds or 7 or whatever after I say it that it's being transmitted to you because we're on a delay.
Wes Matthews starting.
And Wes Matthews is starting. I'm waiting for someone to tell me. Okay. Portland and Miami. God, there it is. There it is right there. Oh, I love it. I love it. All right. Let's close it out. Portland and Miami. Live before lock coming up next. They're going to take you up till 7 p.m. lock. That is Eddie and Chris. Close us out with the Portland Trailblazers and Miami Heat. We got no big argument with chat today. Josh did when he said that Whiteside was a bad basketball player. We had a pretty fun morning. Go ahead and close us out here, Adam.
$8,100 Nurkic, probable to play here, a 1.35 fantasy point per minute guy. The issue is just that, you do have Miles Turner for like 2K less, and you have Drummond, who's very similarly priced to Nurkic. But if I end up in this price range, I think it's a perfectly fine spot for him. Dame Lillard, again, not a priority for me at a really deep point guard position. I don't want to talk anyone off of him. It's just not somewhere that I'm really getting to. Not prioritizing anything really from the Portland side here. And then the Miami side, obviously you have Whiteside's minutes are all over the place. Winslow's losing a little bit of production now that Deion Waiters is seemingly in the rotation. not getting a whole lot from this side either. Like, you can certainly look to Kelly Olynyk, who's played huge minutes the last couple of games. You can look to cheap Tyler Johnson or Dion Waiters. You just have to keep in mind that those minutes are volatile and that there's just a lot of very similar players on the floor right now.
That'll do it for us. Anything you think we missed, they'll hit it on Live Before Lock and get to all of the news that breaks shortly after we sign off. As always, we appreciate you tuning in and helping us grow this show as well. It's been a great 2019, and we appreciate all of you. We really do. Hit us with a thumbs up. Like the video if you appreciate the content, want to see more. It certainly helps us out more than you know. Subscribe, hit that notification bell so you always know when new content's dropping. Until tomorrow, good luck. We'll see you back here on the Deeper Dive Wednesday night. Good luck, fellas.